Option of one or the other. G2 would get the MF if they wanted it. It's going to be Gragas, forced self-made to play that 3 times this split. Has won every single time he's picked it up.
So now the question is, what do G2 choose to prioritize? They have quite a few jungle options. Obviously, only the Pantheon and the Karthus have been taken off the board. With Panth being gone as well, it also mitigates the possibility of the Pantheon to Leah. You can hear the crowd obviously getting very animated about this matchup. We're only on the first phase of G2's draft, and already it's like that they've been killing each other for the past 5 minutes.
I do wonder if we'll see the Ezreal Yuumi once again from, well, possibly from G2 here. Yesterday they played the Ezreal Braum into Origin. Yuumi's still available, still very strong, and can give you...
I feel like if you pick the Yuumi this early on, that it obviously showcases a lot of information. I think G2 should focus on getting an early jungler, and they're actually going to go for the Olaf. Now, I think that Olaf is one of those champions that is high risk, high rewards, but if any jungler can pull it off, it would be Jankos. We saw how hard he punished Xerxes on the Zac matchup yesterday, and I imagine that Jankos is capable of doing it again, but he needs a strong mid laner. Fortunately, G2 have the counter pick on the red side, so we imagine Pertz's pick will be saved for last to ensure a strong 2v2 for G2 Esports.
Fnatic deciding to give Hylissang something he is comfortable on. That Rakan, very good for engage, good at disengage as well if you need it in those late game team fights. Of course, Xayah is a good team up forward, and Reckless hasn't played that yet this split, but he has very good knowledge of that champ.
Yeah, you would imagine it's going to be a priority, but the set is actually going to be the priority champion. We've heard from Whippo when he was on the analyst desk last week talk about how he thinks that this champ is incredibly strong. It can just be picked blind. It wins most matchups. The question is, will they choose to counter it? No, they're actually going to go for the Ezreal Yuumi. You were talking about it, Medic. They're going to prioritize going for a pretty safe bot side of the map, which is to be expected when you can see that the set has already been locked in. G2 can get a counter pick in the top side of the map while also getting a strong mid-jungle duo. So it seems that G2 very top side focused this game.
We are, of course, going into the second ban phase as G2 remove the Tristana, but I was even more confident in the Yuumi when I saw the Olaf, because Yuumi is not always about sitting on an AD carry, it's about sitting on a bruiser and getting them into the back line. Yuumi does that so well with Olaf because you're not locked up. You can run straight through, get that final chapter on whoever you want. Fnatic have their first ban of this second phase now, and we'll see what they want to eliminate. Perhaps strong mid laners. As we said, mid lane is a very powerful position for G2, but instead it's going to be the Aatrox for now.
Yeah, it looks like they're trying to limit the top lane options from the side of G2. I think they could also consider banning away something like the Camille, something that Wonder does enjoy playing. They could also choose to get rid of the Gangplank themselves. Of course, I think the Gangplank does struggle in the early laning phase against a set, but still, that global ultimate is always going to be valuable. What is interesting here is the Tristana ban from G2. This, of course, can be flexed between mid and AD carry. Suggests that G2 is thinking about a Zoe pick here. Zoe plus Ezreal, and I'm just going to throw it out there. Jace is something you have to think about. He did receive buffs on the last patch. It's something that G2 used to be known for a lot. And when you think about something that can bully out the set, I think that it could be a very strong matchup in the top lane. And G2 then have a triple poke comp, which gets so obnoxious to deal with past the 50-minute mark.
Very difficult. Alongside the healing from the Yuumi makes it almost impossible to keep your damage down. Now G2 covering the Sona. Pretty sure they're not going to pick that one. Of course, was nerfed in the top lane, but Lulu mid would also make sense for them. I'm not going to talk about the Harvest anymore. It's Janna!
They're doing Janna top!
Oh, they're
doing Janna top!
Oh, why? Well, G2? Look, Mickey's face! Mickey's just looking at us and laughing at us. Okay, it's Janna top.
Oh my word, they're doing the Janna top. So for those that didn't know, this propped up on Reddit the other day. Basically the same premise as Sona top. On 10.4, the support change item hasn't come through yet, right, Medic?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 10.5 that that change comes through, so you can still go for the early support item. You can still rack up a lot of gold. You can just sit there and harass the set in lane, be incredibly obnoxious. And now this is basically becoming a Juggalath combo, where you just put everything on top of the Olaf and you can never kill him because he's going to have AP shields from the Janna. He's going to have the Yuumi Zoomies.
And we're going to see Nemesis or Whippo play the Yasuo alongside the knockup from the Rakan, the knockup from the Gragas, the knockup from the set. This can be very powerful. I do want to say, of course, that that set can be still flexed mid or top. It could be Yasuo mid or top as well. With Yasuo, you expect it to be mid, and G2 have their final pick. We wondered if it would be a mid counter, but that's what it's going to be, as it looks like Akali will be locked in for G2.
Okay, so I think that this Yasuo will be going top lane, and the set will be going into mid, and then the expectation is that G2 have picked the Akali, hoping to get that the set matchup in the mid lane. But we'll have to wait and see. We won't speculate for now. Let's just talk about the comps in their entirety. First off, Fnatic, very strong scaling. You can see things like the Kai'Sa, Yasuo, Gragas, such strong late game threat, very strong team fighting, easy engage. You can clearly see that they have so many options as well. The ability to play split push, the ability to force fights. They have so many ways in which they can win this game. G2 is pretty much dependent on whether or not this Olaf can get strong enough to then be hyper buffed by the Janna and the Yuumi. The early game is going to be so important for G2, because if they fall behind, I think it'll be very difficult for them to reclaim control over this game.
Totally agree with you there, Vedius. Bwipo is taking set in the top lane. Nemesis is taking Yasuo. Of course, Nemesis could just walk to the top lane and he would be playing Yasuo in the top lane, but what a turn up for the books, because over the last few weeks it's been Fnatic who brought out the inventiveness in draft and thinking Zac top, Zac support, and now G2 are like, well, you know, we tried that Sona thing a while ago, that didn't work. We've tried Saraku in the top lane. What other enchanters can we chuck up there? Wonder's going to be taking Janna top lane. It's the Jug Olaf or the Jug Akali composition.
Hyper carry Olaf.
Hyper carry. Hyper carry Olaf is the build. Fnatic versus G2, we're going to get it 2 times the split. Let's get right into it. The crowd taking turns to cheer on their teams, and as we jump on into the game, I want to just tell you guys about how bloody these two teams are. You can see here the combined kills a minute leaderboard in the LEC all time. G2 in summer, Fnatic in summer last year at the top, but 2020 spring G2 sits at just under a kill a minute. 2020 Fnatic spring sits under 0.87 kills a minute. They're going to go all in.
Forget the kings, forget the legacies. These are gladiators entering the Colosseum. There will be blood, there will be fire, there will be fury. Everything about when these two teams play is nothing but chaos, madness, and excitement. And that's what makes this matchup so exciting. We highlighted how much these two teams love to fight. It gets even more exacerbated when they play against each other. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the game. Let's talk about what these junglers are planning to do, and let's look at these early game options. So, Yanko starting on the bot side, Selfmade doing the same thing. Selfmade could choose to do a full clear on his bot side, and then look for either an early scuttle in the river, or maybe a mid lane gank. Akali, with the recent changes, where she received pretty significant energy increases to her Q, mean that she is a lot weaker in the early laning phase, and Yasuo should actually be able to trade very effectively in that 1 versus 1, which means that the Gragas does have options in the mid lane, but he's choosing not to go for it. We can see that Selfmade skipping his Krugs, actually choosing to go for red into top side. This is probably in consideration of a potential Olaf invade, but that's not what Jankos is doing. He's doing the full clear. He wants to make sure he's getting as much golden experience as possible, because we've got to think about the context of the comp. This is the hyper Jankos carry game. This is the game where he is going to get the Yuumi, he is going to get the Janna, and all the resources are going to be put on his back as he's just running at the enemy team, swinging his axes wildly as he looks to slaughter Fnatic.
I did have a great performance on the Lee Sin yesterday against Origin. Perhaps Grabbers is like, okay, you seem to be carrying us enough. Let's just put all of the eggs into the Jankos basket. Down in the bottom lane, Caps was knocked up early on, but he's just healed up by the Yuumi. Do you want to bring attention to the Relic Shield on Mickey? Some people will think, why not get a Spell Thieves on Yuumi? You're going to get a lot of poke down, but because you don't want to rely on that poke, getting the Relic Shield means you just jump off, you proc it on a minion, and you're guaranteed that gold and that income.
Enough. And also you can see the same support item sitting on top of Wonder right now. His focus is not really on farming. He will of course take some of the last hits, but he just wants to harass. He just wants to pick up as much gold as he can And he's going to be extremely obnoxious. He's already like halfway stacked up on his support item. And one of the great things about this is it means that you have 2 supports, which means you have so much extra vision. And that's really difficult to deal with in pro play because you only have a limited set of options to be able to actually clear away this vision. So if there's twice as many supports, then you can see how much harder that actually becomes to play around.
So Jankos has completed a full clear of his jungle, stolen away the Scuttle Crab that Selfmade was on his way towards, and is now basing at 28 farm, only 4 minutes into the game. Selfmade is an entire Krug camp behind of Jankos' pace right now, so we'll see how Jankos can use the early advantage he is getting and snowball that into something for G2. Because as you say, it feels like if Jankos isn't ahead, G2 are just not going to be ahead.
Well, right now, he's doing absolutely fine, and as you can see, a small gold advantage is being built up for G2. That's largely coming from the top lane difference. Of course, all the extra gold that is being built up on top of the Janna is where this is going to come from. And the fact that I believe Wonder actually got dived extremely early on when he played the Sona top lane.
He did.
Which is largely what made that matchup so much harder for him. He never had the opportunity to roam, and I think he also ran TP, which is something I'm never really a fan of. I think it's much better to run things like the heal or like barrier.
He tweeted afterwards that he would have liked to go Ignite Dark Harvest in the lane.
That's also solid as well. And you can see he's running the Comet mainly because he's just going to poke in this matchup. That's what he wants to do, generate as much gold as possible, and the wave is just going to come underneath this tower. Again, we'll see how much of it he actually chooses to last hit, because you kind of want to stay under a certain threshold, otherwise you can't take advantage of your passive.
You take the minions that give you a lot of gold, and you leave the minions that don't give you as much gold. So usually cannons, 1 or 2 of those melee creeps.
Look at it just die. It's kind of sad.
Minions die all the time, Betty. That's why these.
But it's the gold that's being wasted.
Okay, so it's only good if you kill a minion if you then steal its gold afterwards.
Of course, that you want to benefit from it. And he's also setting up the wave where it's actually pushing towards him as well. This really sucks for Bwipo. His top lane wave is not in a comfortable spot right now. We also have to talk about the fact that Bwipo is actually running Predator. Now, this is quite interesting because we don't commonly see this on the set. And he's actually chosen to go for very early boots of swiftness. This is great against Janna, who's going to keep applying those slows with the W, and it's also going to give him a lot of tools to be able to roam around the map. He knows that a Janna, when you're playing in the top lane, you actually don't spend a lot of time top lane. You get to a certain point and then you just roam.
Yep.
And you'll start to funnel a lot of the farm onto people like Jankos, because you want him to be the hyper carry, of course. So Bwipo has adapted his runes to be able to try and follow and match this Janna so that she's just not causing chaos in the Rift.
Helisan's going to jump in here in the mid lane. Perks ignited, trying to get away underneath the tower, but Reckless is on the chase. Perks flashes away, and that won't quite be enough damage from the Void Seeker, but that's a big wave to lose to the turret, and Perks has to give it up. Does have the teleport if he wants to come back in. Of course, that can always be a little bit dangerous after you've burnt your flash.
Good roam there from Fnatic, trying to put some pressure down onto the Akali. As you rightly said, the TP will be expended, but the loss of the flash is going to hurt Perks. Akali definitely not as safe as she used to be. It's much easier to identify her in her shroud as long as crowd control is being applied. And Fnatic very nearly found themselves a kill there while not really burning much in exchange.
Now we see Jankos trying to make forays into the Fnatic jungle. He's only just slightly ahead of Selfmade. Both of them gone for the Stalker's Blade first. Selfmade, of course, running the Predator. Jankos looking for the first dragon of the game. Perks pushed up mid. Mickey and Caps did the same in the bottom lane. Wonder knocked up here by Bwipo. I don't think Bwipo is going to be able to chase too much further, as Wonder could lock him down underneath the turret. Of course, the disengage tool of the Monsoon on the Janna, very good as well if Bwipo oversteps.
So the one thing I do want to talk about, Medic...
Let's do it, Betty.
Because the teams are primarily just farming right now, I don't expect a huge amount of action. As I say that, Nemesis actually looking for a roam top. I think there is a wave stacking, and the Gragas is on the way as well. I think they want to try and dive the Janna right now.
We promised the people kills, and kills they may get. Bwipo looking for the dive on Wonder. Wonder's going to pop the heal for the movement speed. Nemesis on the chase as well, but good map sense there from Wonder. No vision for him, and he's just like, well, we don't know where mid lane is. I need to get out of here.
Yeah, it was just the communication coming in from G2. They were like, yo, you need to disengage. Not the end of the world for Wonder, of course. He doesn't mind if he loses all this farm. The experience is the bigger pain point for him. But again, he's playing support. He's already got himself a Seeker's Arm Guard, so he's going to be mitigating a lot of the harassment that can potentially come out from Bwipo. And this will also give the opportunity for Selfmade to steal away a red buff, which is definitely what you want to be doing against the likes of an Olaf. So Fnatic playing this early game, very controlled, very patiently, able to find a couple of opportunities, and I like what they're doing in the early game. Things are going pretty well. Of course, they haven't been able to shut down the Olaf just yet, but that's not the end of the world. The thing that I wanted to draw our attention to was the exhaust on top of Nemesis. And when we think about how these late game fights are going to play out, Set, not great at being able to bring the Olaf back, of course, because he's going to have his ultimate. However, Exhaust on Nemesis is going to mitigate a lot of that early damage, on top of the fact that Reckless is playing Kai'Sa. She is a very difficult champion to get on top of, and what could end up happening is Olaf runs in, Bwipo then ults someone to go onto the backline. What happens? Reckless is now on your backline. And so there's an interesting situation where, because of the mobility that Fnatic actually have on their comp, this Olaf may end up just spend the whole team fight getting kited around. And that's why it's going to be so important with how well he pairs up with the Yuumi. Because if he's not able to land that Yuumi ultimate, that additional crowd control is not going to be there, and he's just going to get run around in circles. So I think these late game fights are going to be really interesting to watch, because there's going to be a lot of very specific execution matters that are going to determine the outcome of the fights.
Wonder should know that Selfmade and Hylissang are up here as the ward came down onto a control ward. Wonder now loses some of his vision, and we'll lose some plates pretty soon as well. But Caps and Mickey are looking for the chase on Reckless. Double exhaust once again for this bottom lane. They've overstepped perhaps as Bwipo's going to teleport in behind them. Olaf on his way down. Bwipo decides not to engage. Looks like Fnatic are just happy to stop G2 doing anything rather than forcing things themselves.
Yeah, this isn't the end of the world for Bwipo either, because Jankos will find Bwipo.
Bwipo has flash. He's got ultimate.
He's also running insanely fast.
He's got Predator. He's got Swifties.
He's just like, Olaf is like, fight me!
Like,
and
no,
Bwipo's
I'm going.
Just on a jog.
I'll see you later.
He just jogs off. Medic jogging off the caster desk. Cool stuff there. Now Jankos will walk into a 1 versus 2. Down a level.
He is down a level. He's got his ult. He's going to pop that Ragnarok. Meanwhile, in the top lane, Wonder's getting died. Has to flash away. Manages to dodge out. Let's go back down towards Jankos. I think he just used the ult to get away, and he will secure this Scuttle Crab. And it's a really interesting back and forth, because Fnatic have put a lot of time into getting Hylissang towards the top lane. Now they've brought Reckless up here as well, and they're looking to take the first turret. And they've kind of just abandoned bot lane to Bwipo.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Like, Fnatic, I think, are doing the right thing. We talked about how important the early game was for G2, and that they can't afford to fall behind. And the fact that Fnatic made that swap happen, they can now set their sights on Perks. Remember, no flash available.
Bwipo's going to jump in on the bottom side. You can see the charm coming into Perks. Bwipo uses the showstopper to get out. Jankos tanking up the tower. Perks able to survive. And Bwipo still alive underneath this turret. Let's switch down towards the bottom lane as Bwipo continues to survive. But the prowling projectile will hit, and you have to think that he's not going to keep himself alive too much longer. G2 get their first kill of the game.
So, a lot of things just happened. And I kind of want to start with what happened in the top lane. The great thing about this play for Fnatic is that by using the Rift Herald, it also makes it harder for the Janna to roam, because she's now forced to take topside, so that Fnatic can't just push all the way to that tier 2, which the Rift Herald was able to strike. But on top of that, Fnatic funnel more gold into Reckless. He's now already completed the Mana Mune, which is already going to start stacking up to the Muramana, and they also avoid any potential early gank. Now, of course, the downside for Fnatic is that G2 were able to find that early kill and first blood onto Bwipo, but it also stopped the first tower actually from falling. So if we have a quick look at the gold, you can see that Reckless has a 500 gold advantage over Caps because of all the plates that have been invested into him. Slight gold advantage in the mid lane, slight gold advantage in the top lane. The only gold difference is existing between the two junglers right now, and the scaling comp that Fnatic have drafted themselves are still going to be very strong and difficult to deal with in the late stages. So I feel like the longer this game goes, while G2 do have a very strong late game comp themselves, the execution is going to be the challenging thing.
I think it's always going to be difficult when you're putting a lot of your resources into one player, because Fnatic will know, you know, if we isolate the Yuumi, if we isolate the Janna, that Olaf becomes a lot weaker. If we can kill the Olaf, then the entire team becomes a lot weaker. And Fnatic have been able to hold G2's early game at bay. We promised you bloody games. I'm sorry that it hasn't happened, guys.
It'll come. Just patience.
All right, Vedius, G2 have averaged a kill a minute so far in the split.
So what you're telling me is that we're in for 12 kills.
12 kills. So it's a kill or death, so they could just die 12 times in the next minute as well. If we have a dual team ace, I'll forgive you.
Well, I'm expecting these upcoming fights to be pretty chaotic. I'm really looking forward to them. Of course, we're still waiting for a lot of that core itemization to come through. Trinity Force being worked on for Bwipo. We already talked about the Mana Mune, rather, being built up for Reckless. Going to be going for much more of that scaling itemization. Same for Caps. We also have to bring attention to the double exhaust. We didn't talk about that at all. But Caps and Mickey were running this yesterday.
Yep.
It's a little more common on a Yuumi to be able to run it, but right now pros consider exhaust to be very strong. And we talked about how Nemesis, his exhaust is going to be great against an Olaf. If Reckless does dive onto the backline, he's immediately going to get exhausted as well. So something that Fnatic will have to respect and play around, as right now they have full control over the bot side of the map. They are securing more plates, and they will secure the first Infernal Drake as well. But honestly, I feel like
Fnatic have control of the game right now.
They're playing extremely cleanly. Very few weaknesses to be able to exploit, but now Perks, he's on the hunt. He has the Gunblade.
LeC can't just jump away. It's pretty easy for him. Nemesis building up towards a wit's end first item here on the Yasuo. Not too common that we see that, but of course into the magic damage of Perks, into the magic damage that would come from an Ardent Sensor if Wonder built one or if Yuumi built one. That's definitely going to help out.
I think it also helps because of the extended trades you expect to happen between Akali and Yasuo, as we see a bit of a skirmish in the mid lane. Flash.
Yeah. Nemesis able to get out with that flash. Meanwhile, in the top lane, Bwipo's getting a free tier 2. G2 have kind of, well, I say free. It's pretty much free. G2 have just given him a lot of time to sit up there by himself and secures it. Fnatic have a 1,500 gold lead coming up to the 15-minute mark.
Yeah. Fnatic probably feeling very comfortable right now. Especially given that Jankos has no kills. Sure, he's got a decent amount of farm, but he's actually...
He's still behind Bwipo and Nemesis.
Yeah, he's sitting on the Cinderhulk in Enchantment right now. But yeah, I think that Fnatic is in a very comfortable spot. They're going to keep ramping up. They don't really need to force anything right now. And the other player we kind of have to keep our eyes on is Perks. He's a player that we often talk about as being much more of a roam-focused player, but this game he's obviously been a little bit more isolated in the 1v1. Nemesis has done a great job of trading with him in lane, and they've actually been very even. But now the Gunblade has come through. Perks has also hit level 11. One of the important things to acknowledge about Akali is she gets stronger the more kills she gets, because she often runs presence of mind. And that's so important for Akali right now, because the extra 50 energy that you get from 5 kills or assists means that you now have a pool of 250, and with the increased energy that your Q has, you really need that extra energy to be that much stronger. So the fact that he hasn't been able to find any kills or assists yet, it obviously makes him a little bit weaker, as Wonder takes a little bit of poke there. But that's going to be important to track as we progress throughout this game.
Definitely, as both Wonder and Mickey have completed their quests on their support items, so now we're going to see how much G2 can play around the extra vision they should have on the map. You can see there's 3 sweepers on the side of G2, and a couple of Farsight alterations, whereas Fnatic are missing 1 Farsight alteration.
Yeah, but they've got themselves 3 sweepers as well. Yeah. Obviously going to be very important. Fnatic looking for a bit of an engage, but G2's ability to disengage is strong as well. Jankos does, of course, have the ult.
Pops it straight away. The Showstopper's not going to chase him down. Nemesis not hit with the True Shot barrage as Bwipo tries to put a lot of damage down. There's the Monsoon. They're looking to try and take out Jankos before the fight really begins, but Jankos is still surviving. Perks now in the backline. He's gone down to about half HP. Bwipo had to jump off towards the top side as Caps is trying to trade onto Nemesis. Nemesis gets the knockup, but Jankos has already killed Bwipo. And now the fight really goes in here in earnest. The flash in from Southway. Reckless dives onto the backline, and Jankos isn't going to be able to get him. He gets him. 3v2 now in. Oh, it's a 3v3. Mickey's still alive. Hillsang low. Reckless self-made in the wrong jungle right now as Caps is on the chase. Reckless on a blast cone, but Caps is going to try and do what he can to chase him down. Nemesis and Selfmade and Reckless going to get chased down here. The speed up from the zoomies from Caps is just too strong. Reckless levels up, evolves in the jungle. Will G2 find him out? Where are you? Where are you? Oh, now you're on a ward, Reckless, but can you get away? He's going to clear some of this control out, and the teleport actually comes in from Fnatic. They're committing. Bwipo's on his way. Reckless can just ring around, and Rosie's get out through the bottom side of this jungle, and Fnatic get their AD carry out alive.
All right, so our first taste of bloodshed between the 2 teams, but Fnatic's now in a position to be able to get a better reset off, as Caps is going to be forced to catch this midway. But let's see how this all starts off. Bwipo is looking to get a collapse onto Wonder, but instead finds Jankos. This is where you get to see the power of Olaf in the mid game. He just turns onto Bwipo and is like, yeah, you're squishy. I have my ultimate on. I can just melt through you. Gets all this healing from the Janna as well. Even exhausted, of course, he has the true damage on his E. And then a good ultimate there from Nemesis, but not a huge amount of damage. So now this stagnates, but the problem is Fnatic split up into 2 points. It looks like that with a good knockup from Fnatic, they could have actually turned that fight around, but that's when Perks and the rest of G2 come in for the collapse. Fortunately, Selfmade is able to make it up for Fnatic as he comes in from over the wall, gets that double knockup, and Reckless dives into the backline, ends up in that 3v3 chase where no one ends up walking out, and now we end up in this situation where the game's still very even, but Fnatic hold the gold lead. They're going to secure the Rift Herald as well, because you can see G2 resetting on the map, and these fights very close, very tense. And a lot of it will come down to execution. We talked a lot about this. But Fnatic, it still feels like that they're the ones in the driver's seat. They're the ones in control for this game right now.
Especially when Nemesis is topping the damage charts with only a wit's end. When you get a Phantom Dancer, an Infinity Edge on that Yasuo, as you said, the scaling so powerful on that pick. The question, I think, becomes, will Caps and will Perks be strong enough that if Jankos dies at the start of the fight, they can still carry with the damage? Because, of course, Ezreal scales well into the late game, especially since he's going for Trinity Force instead of Iceborne Gauntlet. So does an Akali. She can still burst someone down.
This is the interesting thing, right? We've talked a lot about Jankos being the big carry for this team, but Perks has just been quietly farming away. He's already completed the Gunblade. He now has 1 kill and 1 assist, so he's going to get that extra 20 energy as well from Presence of Mind. And he can do some serious damage. Akali, while she did get some nerfs, she also had some pretty significant damage buffs to things like her ultimate. Her execute is now that much stronger. And that's why I can say that I don't know how these fights are going to play out because there are so many elements associated with it. I think both comps are very solid, and a lot of this is going to come down to execution. And we saw in the last fight, it was 2 for 2. It was incredibly close. Small decisions could have swung it either way. But the thing you always have to bring back into focus is Fnatic have a 2.5k gold lead right now. They have the Rift held. They're just using this to generate pressure because the Drake is likely their focus. Hylissang goes to the engage.
Immediately the Ragnarok used, but they dive onto Wonder, and already he's dead. Hylissang almost falls as well, but they can't quite get him. And now it's a 4v5 in favor of Fnatic. They find another kill, equalize it at 3-3. 2,000 gold lead for Fnatic. They're 3 turrets to nil up as well. Looking for the third dragon of the game, but G2 will get priority on it. G2 yet to take a tower this game, Bedia. So if G2 do win a team fight, having a few members left alive, they will be able to get some of that standing gold off the map.
This will, of course, give G2 the opportunity to secure the Drake. Fnatic, after finding that pick, are actually looking to contest this.
Showstopper coming in, Cap secures it, but there's the face breaker. Jankos no ult, remember, he can't get out of this as the exhaust comes down. Fnatic able to survive, self-made with the perfect timing on his stopwatch, gets out alive, and there's 2 more kills to Fnatic. Perks looking for a flank, looking to find something, but Fnatic, they're pinging the Baron, they know exactly where they want to go.
But there's no teleport on Bwipo. I think their focus should just be getting vision on it, but of course with the jungler gone, they could look for an opportunity. Perks now.
Beautiful little dodge there from Perks as Hylissang tried to jump in, the knock up, but here they go. Nemesis jumping in with the last breath once again. The True Shot Barrage comes out but doesn't hit anyone. And G2 able to defend their mid-tier 1, but losing out on these fights. That gold lead is now 3,500.
Yeah, Fnatic is in a commanding position. Finding those additional 2 kills was extremely valuable for them. Hylissang playing with fire right now, as he often does. Caps just going to disengage off the back of that one, but whew, intense stuff. This is the fight initiation. Wonder becomes the focus for Hylissang. I like this target selection because while they might not be able to lock down the Ezreal or the Olaf, that Janna has no flash. Her heal is on cooldown, and she's easy pickings if you can just get on top of her. Of course, they do. That was insanely close. Reckless nearly stole that away with his W. Mickey just trying to jump on top of Caps, but he can't quite get in range, so he ends up dropping initially, and then a great stopwatch there from Selfmade to be able to buy enough time for the rest of his team to clean up the fight.
And now Reckless is scaling up into the game as well. He's got a Ginsu's complete. He's on his way to his Nash's Tooth. Phantom Dancer finished on Nemesis. Fnatic very much in the driver's seat this game. I think it was division amongst most of us as to who would win this game. I gave it to G2 thinking that they showed us more against Origin yesterday than Fnatic had shown us against SK, but Fnatic have been inventive, they've been creative. They have always been willing to take a fight, even if it seemed disadvantageous to them.
I also just think that they're using that pressure very well. I like what they did in the early game. They went for the swap exactly at 8 minutes, and while you do expect it against a Janna, it's exceptionally strong, and G2 did nothing to stop it. And in this early game, Olaf has not really found that many opportunities, so the snowball never really got going. And while, again, I still want to iterate that because G2 have double supports, because they still have Akali, Ezreal, their late game is no slouch either. But I look at this comp from Fnatic, and I think that it's going to be very difficult for G2 to play against just because of the sheer amount of mobility that exists on Fnatic's comp. So to me, it looks like the Fnatic is gearing up to be able to find this big win over G2, to be able to cement themselves as the best team in Europe right now. And by taking down this turret, that's a 4-0 turret advantage. Perks is looking for a flank, but he's not going to find it, and Fnatic seems to be in firm control.
They definitely are right now. G2, you can see, basically no vision in their own jungle right now. It's very, very defensive.
Ironic when they have 2 supports.
Yeah.
You know, that just goes to show how much control they have.
Hylissang going in. Oh, that was just short from Hylissang. He used the Shurelias to try and catch up, but the exhaust comes down and forces him away. Now Hylissang, no flash, no Shurelias, no engage. And G2 will use this time to get more farm onto Jankos in that top lane. Perkz is going to get the first turret of the game as well for our current title holders. There it goes.
Continues to mount for Fnatic. Caps has spotted out Bwipo, but he won't be able to lock him down.
Okay, so what are Fnatic getting out of the fact that G2 are sending so many people down towards this bottom side? Well, Nemesis is farming Krugs, so...
I think a lot of it right now is just farm. Fnatic want to try and catch the waves. They also want to keep pressure up top. One of the big things is that Fnatic can only ever really send Perkz to a side lane, whereas... Sorry, G2 can only ever send the Akali to a side lane, whereas Fnatic can send the Yasuo and the Set into side lane. So they can play a 1-3-1 with which G2 can't match. Unless they want to separate the Janna from their team, in which case Fnatic can then look for a collapse, maybe onto the Janna, maybe force a fight onto the 3 in mid. It looks like Fnatic right now, though, is looking for a collapse onto Caps.
Selfmade's got a great flank here. They're looking for Caps. He's got flash. He dodges out from the explosive casting. Now Jankos is on the chase. There's the Zoomies. Caps down to half HP. Here comes the final chapter, but it's not going to land onto Selfmade. Selfmade trying to get away. In the end, he will fall. Caps secures it. Good collapse there from G2. Knowing Bwipo's in the bottom lane, they could take that fight.
And it ends up being a trade of flashes for the junglers, but Fnatic, you can see, they tried to force that play on the top lane. I don't think they needed to force it. They're still scaling, they're still in a great position, but they were looking for an opportunity to catch Caps out off guard, but the rest of G2 were resetting. You can see them coming in from base. Selfmade tries to predict the E, but great patience there from Caps. He does get knocked up here by flashing in, but Nemesis chooses not to use his ultimate. He very well likely could have gotten a kill onto Caps, but he would have lost his life in exchange, so he chooses to disengage while losing his jungler to the Wolves. G2 do find a kill. Gold, though, is still heavily in favor of Fnatic.
And I'm loving this game, Betty, because you said it at the start. This is not kings, this is gladiators. This is two people exchanging blows in an arena, and every time you think someone has the upper hand, G2 land an uppercut. Fnatic then strike back with a blow to the ribs, and it's just over and over and over again, and you never really know who's going to come out on top in these fights. Absolutely exhilarating to watch, and now the Cloud Drake is the target for these two teams.
Look at Perkz. You can see him in a flanking position. He hasn't been spotted because he's sitting on the control ward, but he's going to be integral in the execution of this fight. This is something we see all the time from Perkz. Reckless. He has no idea how close he is to Perkz.
They're going to give it up. They give up the Cloud Drake. They get it.
Okay, G2 not going to force the engage there. Fnatic going to walk away with the Cloud Drake. Things still very even. Stevens, of course, the goal's still heavily in favor of Fnatic, but the game doesn't feel like it's in full control for Fnatic anymore. You can see that G2, with more items being completed, they're starting to threaten a lot more. Level 15 completed for Perkz. The big level discrepancy is obviously between the two top laners because Wonder keeps grouping up with his team. He's trying to stay and offer that support that a Janna naturally does. So while there is this level difference and this gold gap, you have to take into consideration the fact that a lot of it is now coming from the top laners. You know, when we actually switch over to the gold after our lower third disappears, you'll see that all of it is largely existing just between the two top laners.
There you are.
There is a bit of a difference between the AD carries as well, so it's not to say that Fnatic aren't stronger right now, but this gold is a little bit inflated by the fact that you are playing against the support in the top lane.
And the thing is, you're starting to see second items come out on some of these G2 players. The Zhonya is now complete on Perkz. You can see Trinity Force, Miura Mana fully stacked up on Caps.
QSS on Caps as well.
QSS gets you out of the knockups. QSS Flash.
Gets you out of a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So...
there's no stun. The Space Breaker is the only stun I see on...
I mean the Charm, I'm not sure.
Oh, Charm, yeah, gets you out of Charm, yeah, you're right.
So, anyway, Reckless, 3 items now. He's terrifying. He is insanely strong. This is like peak Kai'Sa, you know? And this is where, if I'm Fnatic, I'm thinking, okay, we can actually start looking for fights now if we wanted to. They maybe want to wait for Nemesis to actually finish his Infinity Edge, because then you're like super strong. And to be honest, like we talked about it, Fnatic don't actually have to team fight. They could just focus on playing the 1-3-1 if they wanted to, as long as they make sure that they play towards the strong side, which should be Nemesis because he doesn't have the teleport, and then you leave Bwipo on the weak side, he can then join the fray. Fnatic actually choosing to rush the Baron here.
Caps uses the Scryer's Bloom up towards Bwipo. Look at how quickly that Baron is going down. It's already down to about 5,000. You can see Selfmade quite low here as well. Caps might look for that true shot barrage. Jankos going to jump into the pit. He goes on top and he steals it! Jankos, so much weight on his shoulders in this game, and he manages to get the steal. Charm coming on to Perkz here. There's the final chapter as well as they look to lock up Bwipo, but G2 just want to disengage. G2 get out with the Baron.
But what was this from Fnatic? They just coin flip a Baron there. They take the gamble and lose, and now G2 have the Baron and can just hold the line. They may have lost Jankos, but this was a worthwhile trade for G2 Esports.
Incredible steal there from Jankos, but as you say, Fnatic were the ones to flip the D2, and they came down tails this game. G2 will now use this advantage. Remember, they've only taken one turret this game. There are so many towers for them to reap the benefits of this Baron.
Such a surprising gamble.
Hidesang might be dead. Hidesang's dead.
Yes, he is in fact
He walked
dead.
into the knockup.
Fnatic is just collapsing. What is going on? After they tried to force that play in top and they got punished, it feels as though like they're feeling all this pressure. Like we talked about the scaling, we talked about short in the late game, G2's comp is going to be difficult, but Fnatic have options. Fnatic do have a strong late game comp and they can play the side lanes, but they didn't utilize that. They didn't try to separate G2. They didn't try to take advantage of the fact that they have a TP advantage over G2.
2 towers down in the mid lane from this Baron buff. Perks secures one in the top as well. 3,000 gold already from it. And it was stolen right under Fnatic's noses. Now G2 will group up as 5 towards this top lane. This should be another tier 2 just gone. Wonder using the Eye of the Storm to tank it up, and you can see Caps rattling out the damage on the Ezreal. Is going to be able to jump across the wall here. Fnatic probably wondering what went wrong over the last couple of minutes, because this is a trip and a fall from them.
The Baron is what went wrong, Medic. That is
but
exactly...
I mean, like, the decision-making that led to it. Why did they do it? Well, we'll see if they can come back from a pretty devastating moment for them. Of course, they do still scale. They are still even on gold. You've got the Infinity Edge now complete on Nemesis. But we'll see that steal once again.
So let's have a look at it. How close was this? Let's get some super slow-mo. Ulti comes through, but 13
HP.
Oh my word, that is so unlucky for Selfmade.
I wonder.
Oh my words.
I actually wonder as well whether Jankos used Ragnarok mid-air so he wasn't knocked up by the Steel Tempest that came from Yasuo. I wonder. Now,
I mean, maybe,
someone smarter than me will look at it second by second to see exactly if that happened, but still, Fnatic went for it, didn't clear out vision, didn't get deep vision in the G2 jungle.
They gambled. And this is the thing. Now, the Baron is obviously going to wear off. G2 got a lot of gold for that. They equalized.
Yeah.
So let's now, wait, we might not have time to flip over as Fnatic's looking for a fight.
Ripper look for the flank here. Ragnarok comes out. Nemesis is going to take a little bit of damage as well. The final chapter's already been used. As you say, very early there, still going to get knocked up. Nemesis there, looking to knock up onto Perk. They all dive in. The Killer Instinct from Reckless, trying to take out one. The Showstopper gets in, and they jump onto the backline. There's the Charm as well as Fnatic. Maybe they found that fight as they catch all of G2 alive. But look at the healing coming out from the Zoomies. Jankos still alive in this fight, and Nemesis having to run for the hills. G2 just healed up by that Yuumi.
How does no one die in this fight? It was so close from both teams. I thought Perks was going to get one shot. He ends up walking away. I thought Nemesis was done for, but he ends up surviving as well. At the end of the day, it's G2 who have priority over the mid lane. They walk away with the inhibitor. And this game is now... You can feel how the momentum is so heavily shifted in favor of G2. The Cloud Drake is up. They're going to make their way towards it. A lot of ultimates were used, but it looks like Fnatic not going to be in a position to contest. They need to catch that bot wave. And G2 is just too quick to take the objective down.
You could see Mippy with his head in his hands, his former team beating his current team, taking the inhibitor in the mid lane. Of course, Fnatic still ahead in gold, but we'll see this fight once again.
So, Whippo is already behind, and G2 is setting up for a collapse onto Reckless, but he ends up just flashing away. The ultimate comes out early from the Yuumi to disengage. Nemesis can't close the gap. And then a very early ultimate from Jankos, and at this point you're thinking, okay, this is actually a pretty good situation from Fnatic, and I love what Selfmade does here. Ulti onto the Akali to allow Nemesis to get out, and Whippo positions in a way where he's now soaking up the damage, because he can then use the W into a fantastic charm. But the healing from the Janna ultimate is what swings it. The positioning from Wonder was so good there, because he's able to sustain the team up combined with the Yuumi as well. And we have to acknowledge the fact that I think Perks used stopwatch twice. He had the stopwatch on top of having the Zhonya's as well, which bought so much time, which is why his damage is so low in this fight.
It's a fight of millimeters, though.
What an intense
It's a fight of millimeters, because Wonder channels the Monsoon, Whippo then uses the Facebreaker, and Wonder is just at the edge of it, doesn't get caught by it, would have cancelled the channel, would have removed all of that healing, and now Fnatic are the ones on the front foot.
Now, look, Caps is in the top lane. He needs to reset. Fnatic is in a great position here to just break into the base. They can look to dive if they want to.
They're going for it. That turret's going to fall very quickly. Caps not here anywhere near in time. Perk's looking for the flank, but Caps is on his way. The Yuumi's on him as well. G2 might look to try and bite this before Fnatic can really disengage, but in the end, Fnatic just walk away. and live to fight another day. They didn't get the inhib, they only got the inhib tower. Now, what's up next? Baron, 30 seconds. Fnatic will want vision around this. They've made mistakes around it already once this game. You can see Elimizden getting a couple of deep wards in. That's what you want. However, with super minions pushing in mid, it's so important. Oh, they spotted Perks.
Yeah, they
spotted Perks.
G2 have no idea that Whippo is sitting in this brush right now.
Camps has QSS Flash. If Whippo goes for it, he can QSS Flash. He does it. He jumps across the wall, but Reckless already going in and with the face breaker. Oh, Camps able to flash away. Gets across the wall. Redemption coming out as Nemesis jumps forward for the fight. Fnatic trying to reset. Camps jumps across. The charm's going to land onto him, but here comes Perks. Looking for the dive onto the back line as Elimizden is already dead. Perks drives straight in, but knocked up by Selfmade. In a moment, in a heartbeat, there's the True Shot Barrage coming out as well. And G2 now have a man advantage. Selfmade jumps back in. Perks alive. There's the Monsoon. Selfmade's going to go down, and the Monsoon just heals up them all. Reckless next on the menu. Only Nemesis left alive. And Caps is staring him straight in the eye and saying, come at me.
This could be it, Medic. Look at the death timers on Fnatic right now. G2 have the wave. They have all 5 members, and one team fight could be enough to decide the game.
Fight as you like. In the LEC, everyone beats everyone, and it's not Fnatic today. In the end, it is G2 who look to take the win. Nemesis trying to do what he can to defend the Nexus towers, but he's exhausted. Pops a stopwatch, Caps jumps across, and Nemesis is next up for the chopping block. In the end, he's going to go down, but he's still doing what he can. Hylissang's respawned, but there's only one Nexus tower left alive, and G2 will kill Hylissang in a heartbeat. G2, in the end, after a back-and-forth game, will take the win over Fnatic, and with it, they claim top spot in the LEC.
What an intense game. So many of these team fights were decided by such small decisions. The Janna healing in the late game was just so difficult to deal with. You know, we didn't talk about it, but the healing reduction was needed for Fnatic.
Selfmade did have Morellos. I did have a look at it. I didn't mention it.
Oh, you're right. You're right. You're
Selfmade
definitely right.
Morellos,
You're right. My apologies. I did just see that, of course, but my word, so intense these final fights.
What a game.
But you have to focus on the Baron, man. Like that, like Fnatic had such strong control. Like the game was at the very least even, if not in favor of Fnatic.
Yeah, totally agree with you there, buddy.
One Baron decision, they gambled at 13 HP.
Oh, I was so close. You can vote for your key player of the game at LEC on Twitter. Caps, Jankos, and Perks are your options. I'd give it to any of them. Like, I'm not going to say who should get it. I think they all had good games. I think there's always going to be a ton of focus on Jankos because he was on the Olaf, but he wasn't the key carry.
I think props to Caps as well. You know, his performance on AD carry has been questioned by a lot of fans, by a lot of analysts, but I think this was one of his best performances. His positioning was good. He didn't die once this game. Of course, he did have a Yuumi and Janna to assist him, and he was playing against Will. But I still think that his damage output was great, and he overall had a solid game. Very intense game. Honestly, this game could have gone either way. It was not clear-cut. The 2 top teams in Europe clearly still are top 2, and it feels like there's still a gap between them and everyone else.